We have a brand new candidate who was rolled out yesterday, Nick Kempe. He's running constituency number 18, Pembroke West Central. And of course, we have Thad Hollis with him from the One Bermuda Alliance.
Good afternoon.
And afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, Gina. Thanks
How
for
are
having
you
me.
today?
All right.
Good, good.
Wonderful.
And so, Nick, you have put yourself forward to represent the constituents in constituency 18, Pembroke West Central. Tell us a bit about you. I know you're young. How old are you? How young?
I'm 29 years old.
You're 29. Okay.
Yep. Born in Bermuda. Went to Saltus. Then I went away to school. When I was 17, I kind of got tired of that whole scene and went out doing my own thing. I went to Spain. My Spanish teacher was from Spain. I end up going to her high school. First foreigner ever to go there. No program. My parents spoke no Spanish. It was definitely sink or swim.
Wow. What was it like being in a completely different environment and having the opportunity to learn? What was that like for you as a young person?
It was great. I get bored without something that's challenging me, and I really relish the chance to go and do that and actually properly learn the language, immerse myself in a different culture, a different perspective. And I ended up liking it so much that I stayed, and I ended up doing my undergrad and my master's at a Spanish high school there, and civil law, everything is Spanish. So it was definitely an uphill battle, but
indeed. And so tell us about your upbringing in Bermuda, the Camp household. What was it like, growing up?
Great. I mean, I think Bermuda is an amazing place to grow up. You've got all the kids on the lane, always running up and down the street until it got dark. Get home from school, do your homework, go running out and play as long as you could, and back home for dinner. I remember a safe Bermuda, and that's something that I feel is missing nowadays. The locked doors. And
when you hear that there's been another shooting murder, what does it do to you?
It saddens me. You never had that before. The worst you'd see was a fight at recess and someone would get a bloody nose, torn shirt. I mean, it was healthy discussion, healthy aggression coming out without it being overly violent or hiding behind a gun or a knife or whatever else. People could scrap and then get on with their lives.
Yeah. And I mean, you're a young man, and a number of these young men who are losing their lives are not much older or younger than you. What are your thoughts about when you're with your peers and you're, maybe this weekend? What was the conversation like when you talk to the young men and women who you get around with, or people that you know in your age group?
It's just another senseless murder. Not that there's any murders that make sense, but it's just down the road from me. There's been a number of gun incidences around. There was something with my wife down. She's from Italy. I worry about her on riding around alone at night. She grew up in Naples, which is mafia territory, and she walks around Naples without fear. I said, but no, look, it's a different thing here. You can't, you're a woman, you're on the bike by yourself. I don't want you riding around at night. I don't, let me know, I'll come get you. And having to have that sort of anxiety it's very trying. And I never had that. It was a very carefree existence when I remember Bermuda before I went away.
Okay. As we move forward, and of course, you're preparing for the election just like every other candidate. What made you want to get involved in politics, and why did you choose the One Bermuda Alliance to be a part of?
Well, I was always somewhat apathetic of government. Just it always seemed like you had the two old parties that have been bickering and excluding each one a separate part of the island for so long, and I always very interested in the economy, being that's what I studied, and seeing that things. It felt like it was basic economic things, basic even household economics that just weren't being done, and 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 I felt that something needed to be done. I was always complaining about it, and finally, a guy at work who he said, "Hey, you should speak to Craig, Craig Cannoneer," and finally I did, and Craig just filled me with a hope that things could be different. That it wasn't just the new UBP. It was a different party. It was inclusive. It tried to look for a common ground. I mean, we're too small an island to have people basing their political views on, or their voting patterns on, the color of their skin or whatever other trivial thing, and not the arguments at hand, the points and the policies.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like the OBA is really looking at the whole community and trying to look for a way forwards with thought out, researched answers.
Okay. Now you're new to the whole political experience. Mm-hmm. When you walked into the room, your first caucus meeting, what was that like?
It was motivating. It really was. There was an energy in the room. Obviously, everyone's. It's not a naive bliss. Everyone understands that winning the election doesn't mean it's going to be, butterflies and cupcakes. It's going to be more work. It's going to be hard. But being involved in that change, that giving people back hope. And it was very uplifting. It made me want to just get out there and start canvassing, because that was my first meeting. I started very shortly after that, and there's been an amazing response on the doorsteps. I mean, people are glad to see you out there putting in the hours. Really doing what you can in whatever capacity you have to try and get further the community, bring back that Bermuda, that close knit, that where everyone you spoke to each other, and there wasn't this bristle of aggression.
How did your, I guess, co-workers, friends, and family react? Because remember, you said you were one of those people that were like, I'm tired of this bickering. I just wish we could get it together. Going from that side to the flip side and say, you know what? I'm not going to be complaining anymore. I'm actually going to step up to the plate and become a part of it. What was their reaction?
Not so much from my family, but there was definitely from friends. The main reaction was why.
Mm-hmm.
Why? You're 29 years old. You could be doing a lot more exciting things in the summer, and in general. And it was just that. I felt, look, if I'm deemed qualified enough to help, I knew I could put in the time and the effort, and I had the enthusiasm. I wanted to see if I could help make that change. If I could make a difference.
Okay. Now, walk us through your constituency. If there are any particular spaces or places that people would be familiar with in the area that you're going to be.
Okay. Well, starting from St. John's Road by Belco, you go up Barclay Hill, take a right on Mount Hill, go all the way down to the last left before Bully Graham, Fruitlands Ave, which joins by some steps to Stepney, down to North Shore. Take a left on North Shore, go all the way along to Sunset, which is just before Deep Bay. Go up Sunset Pass, and that takes you, it's the corner right by Point Mart. And then Point Mart, go left again, Spanish Point Road, till you get to the roundabout by St. John's, and then all the way down to Barclay Road again.
Okay. Now, what is the feel or the culture or the fabric like? Is your community a mixed community? Do you have more of one group or constituent than the other? Like, kind of give us a feel for.
No, I think Pembroke West Central is an amazing snapshot of the island. You've got, it's just got a great mix. People are welcoming. The roads that I've seen, it's amazing how close knit some of them are. A lot of them are all basically in West Pembroke. All the West Pembroke Central, all the roads come up the hill, but they don't connect.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have many through roads, which keeps the neighborhoods used to seeing the same people. So there's that, you don't have the strangers coming through all the time, so they know each other. A lot of them are all family. The names of the roads represent the families that were there,
Mm-hmm.
and it's I'm starting to get to understand quite to what extent it is.
Yeah. So tell us about, you're on the doorstep, you're canvassing. What are the constituents of 18 Pembroke West Central saying to you? What are they sharing with you? What are their concerns? What are you hearing?
Crime. A lot of people have suffered break-ins, and that's everywhere from Stepney Ave over to Sunset. It's the break-ins. Obviously, that's not everyone, but it's having to lock your door at night, even when you're going upstairs to your grandparents who live upstairs. Short things like that. Obviously, the economy. I haven't obviously canvassed the whole area yet,
Mm-hmm.
but I've already met 3 people who are suffering in the job market, been unemployed for 12 months and more, which I remember, back in the day, you could quit a job at 8:30 and have another one before 9. And it's people are having a hard time finding unemployment, putting a lot more stress on those who are employed, trying to pay the mortgage, trying to keep the kids fed. There is definitely you're seeing the hardship, but you're also seeing that people are ready for change. They're excited for it. Something fresh. It's obviously Bermuda's democracy is young compared to other countries, and it's been just the 2 parties for so long that didn't seem to have that commonality. It was more kind of just fighting on either side of a divide, and I think people feel the OBAs coming in the middle and feeling included. I think they appreciate the fact that I'm coming and listening to them. They said they haven't had anyone come to their doors in a long time.
Wow. We hear that a lot. It's interesting. We've had many candidates come in, and for the amount of people who they say there just hasn't been any representation. Very few people have knocked on the door, or after an election they don't see people for until the next one. What are your thoughts around that? I mean, as far as the commitment that you've made to be to be a representative for this area.
I mean, obviously, right now, I haven't met everyone yet,
Mm-hmm.
so the time commitment is very high. I mean, you're talking 20, 30 hours a week. But once I get to know everyone, I think it'll be firstly far more easy to just go out and kind of walk around. You already know everyone's names.
Mm-hmm.
And it's enjoyable at that point because you know the neighbors. Like I said, I live right in the middle of the constituency. So for me, I'm going for my walk anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Might as well just change the route. You can still meet everyone once you've had that time to spend the 20, 40 minutes in their living room. You definitely develop a bond. You understand, where their auntie lives, who their sister's married to, and it's you have that rapport. And it's definitely it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling getting to really know your neighbors. Obviously, as a renter, I've moved around a lot recently,
Mm-hmm.
so it definitely makes me feel more stable.
Sure.
Knowing who's living next to me and who's across the street, and just that you're all in the same boat, and everyone's suffering the same things and has the same worries.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you have that trust, they're more likely to feel that you're the competent person. You're the person who's gonna represent them going forwards. Take care of their concerns.
Okay.
'Cause
Now, why should someone put the axe in the box for Nick?
because I'm a hard worker. As I was saying, I've never been afraid of a challenge or hard work. I definitely enjoy. If I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it right. If not, it's not worth doing. I've never been. I'm gonna do something half, and
What would you do differently in reference to some of the challenges that a lot of seasoned MPs find themselves in. You know how there's this familiar spirit, and sometimes people take stuff for granted. What would you do differently as a young, new, fresh candidate in terms of your connection to your constituents?
I mean, I think the main thing is, if you want to look at it at a constituency level or at a national level, is getting our spending under control, living modestly. As you know, it's 60,000 people. We don't need all the flash and all the we're not representing 300 million people in the U.S. We're representing a small neighborhood, and just get back to basics. From a spending and a control side. If you're making $1,000, you can't be spending $1,200 every week, and that's maybe 1 week, maybe 2. You can't do it for 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. years, and people at home know it. People in a company know it. Doesn't seem the government is getting that basic tenet of sustainable economics, and I mean that's the main thing. Once the economy starts taking care of itself, a lot of the constituents' problems will be alleviated.
Sure. Now, when you hear, as someone who has studied business and the like, when you hear a company like Fitch saying that they're downgrading our status, what does that mean to you, or how does that affect you?
I mean, it obviously shakes the confidence that foreign investors will have in Bermuda. It's the big thing is it's not really a surprise. Whilst governments tried to mislead everyone by saying that our our debt over GDP is in line with other countries and it's not that bad, they're leaving out the key point that our economy is structured differently from these countries in Europe where they're comparing these ratios to. We don't have the capital gains taxes, and we don't have the corporation taxes that build a large part of the revenue base that these other countries have. So when our revenue streams are so limited, I mean it's what we can get for essentially payroll tax, and we can squeeze out of IB and tourism, as well as the main one, which is our duty revenue. When we have less people here and we have less companies and that's all these revenue streams shrink, and these other ones, which this debt over GDP ratio is based in the rest of the world, seem healthy. For us, it's a terrible symptom of sickness, and that's the main thing. It's not a healthy picture, and it keeps getting painted as if everything's okay, and that really bugs me.
Okay. Well, we're getting up close to the news, but I do want to hear the OBA's plan in reference to how they would tackle some of these very same issues, and certainly your role. Do you serve on the shadow board?
No, I'm only on the Committee for Social Affairs.
Okay.
I started very late in this. I've been in politics about a month.
Yes.
So most of my time's been going to going out and speaking to people.
Sure.
And yeah, I haven't been privy to the shadow board meetings, but I have heard the platform points and the presentations. So.
Sure. All right. Well, on the other side of the 1 o'clock news, we will continue our chat and certainly get into the plan that the OBA has put in place in reference to addressing some of the same issues that you've highlighted, and how you would do that, and certainly allow our callers to interact with you if they've got a question, comment, or just want to talk with you. But right after the 1 o'clock news, we will continue our chat, right? And so the time now is 1:09, and we will continue our interview with our very special guest, Nick Kempe. He's running in constituency 18, Pembroke West Central, for the One Bermuda Alliance. 29 years old, young candidate. We started talking a bit on the first half of the program. Of course, this half, the phone lines will be open for you to interact with him. If you have a question or comment, respectfully, you can interact. But we did want to hear from you, Nick, in reference to the One Bermuda Alliance, their plan to address some of the economy challenges, because that was one thing that you spoke in depth about. So can you share that with us?
Well, obviously when you're spending too much money, you need to always approach it two ways: either grow your revenue, get a second job, or reduce your costs, however it may be. So the OBA plans to use both of those approaches because we're in such terrible economic and financial state. So to grow the economy, we need to get rid of all the growth inhibiting policies that may have been relevant, may have worked when our economy was hot, when Bermudians were being pushed out of houses, and we needed to put things to slow it down, to try and protect Bermudians from being pushed out of our island. Well, now it's not the case. Houses are sitting empty. We've lost 10% of our population in the last 7 years.
What are those numbers like? When you say 10%, what are we talking about in terms of numbers?
Around 6,000 people.
So 6,000 people have left
our shores. Yep.
Okay.
And mainly that was due to ill thought out or money grabbing policies, such as pushing the payroll tax up from 14 to 16%, which was misleadingly called a 2% increase, but it's more like a 15% increase, and that for a company's bottom line is terrible when payroll and rents are usually the two biggest expense items. The cap on the payroll on the salary cap on the payroll tax was adjusted as well, and that pushed out a lot of the C-suite, the CEOs, the CFOs, the
top brass type.
Exactly,
yeah.
The executives, and they're the ones who bring the companies here. And when the companies are here, obviously, employees come with them, work comes with them, and I'm not talking just about jobs as underwriters and brokers and this sort of stuff. I'm talking about all the people that benefit from just their presence being here. We're talking, usually it's a lot of young professionals making good money, paying that money into our system, and then usually they're leaving and they're not taxing our health care when they retire. They're not, so it's very, very beneficial individuals for our economy and all the jobs that spin off around it. I mean, at work we've noticed that the size of the houses that we move have decreased because we've lost the C-suite. We used to have 3-4 container moves. We could have 3 or 4 crews going at once. People were getting $200 tips. Now you're struggling just to fill half a container because the housing allowances have gone. And for the first time in my life, I saw in the month of March we had no jobs on the board 1 week. So when you have to look guys in the eye and say, I'm sorry, there's no jobs. We literally cannot afford to have you on this week. If you have vacation, great. If not, that's.
And these are blue collar workers. When
yeah,
you say
these are the guys driving truck,
mm-hmm.
and they're the ones who are getting the hit the most by this, because it fluctuates so much. People in the office, yes, business is down. Everyone's on a 4-day week, so that's 20% hit, but you're able to almost budget for that when you know it's consistent. But the guys on the trucks, when you don't know if it's going to be busy next week, and then all of a sudden you lose 25% of your month's pay, I mean, it's very hard, and these are the people who the PLP were meant to be protecting the most, and they're suffering because because they believe they're the labor government, that they're attacking management. And you can't have a coordinated a company that works well together if one side is at odds with the others. You need profits to grow a business, to hire, to make payroll, and it's all a very symbiotic relationship. You can't have one at odds with the other. It just doesn't make sense.
Okay. And so tell us about your plan. You sort of talk about how the One Bermuda Alliance, a two-pronged approach.
So the one side is growing the revenue. If we look at the Fitch report, they've alluded to credibility 3 times. They've talked about a new administration. They've referred to the elections. So they're obviously looking forwards at a different model of government, a better management of the debt, of the public purse. And when foreign investors see a government that's more welcoming to them, that offers more stability. They're not going to flip-flop on the payroll tax, going from 14 to 16 back to 14, doing these sort of things. They're going to be willing to invest in Bermuda again. We have the infrastructure. It's sitting there empty. We have the houses. They're sitting there empty. We can handle an influx of business people. And this isn't seasonal like tourism. These are people who live here all year round, spending money in our economy, growing jobs. And on the other side of it, it's the controlling the cost. So, and that means sticking to budget. That means living modestly like we always have here in Bermuda. There's no need to be, obviously the cars, the infamous cars, aren't the only reason why we've overspent. But it's sticking to a budget. If you earn $1,000 a week, you can't spend $1,200. I mean that's all you've got. You can maybe do it 1 week. You can't do it for 7 years. You'd lose your house, you'd lose your car, and that's the situation we're in right now as a country.
Okay. We've got some calls coming through. Did you want to make any more points? Because once we start the calls, well, we can always come back to that. Let's take a few calls. Thanks for holding, Corley, on the air.
Hi, good afternoon, Jana. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
And good afternoon to the young chap, and thank you very much.
Good afternoon.
Stepping forward to serve our country. We need our young people to step forward regardless of what political party they choose. But I have a little issue when it comes to the economy, and I noticed you spoke a lot about the economy. I'm going to speak of just 3 families that I know, maybe even 4, really quickly. I know of a Bermudian family that when IB was ticking, they borrowed lots of money. They had a Bermudian family in a home that was almost fully paid for. They borrowed, almost $500,000 so that they can rent it to IB and up the rent from $2,500 to $6,000. Obviously, we all know what happened when that tenant moved out. Now we have a Bermudian family that is left with that $500,000 loan now. And my issue, what I'm saying is, because I know this family intimately, I know the reasons that led to 3 actually families leaving. And that was the company, was an investment company. They started recording from 2007 deep profit losses, revenue losses. And what that company started doing was cutting back on benefits, housing allowance started cutting back. Now, that had nothing to do with PLP policies or anything else. That was all market-driven. And what I'm afraid of is we keep saying it was only policies that caused Bermuda to decline. Are we putting a false sense of security into people that say once we change the policy, things will come back? Because I don't know what percentage is it, but most of the percentages that I know, people's lost their job because of declines in markets. And yes, eventually it trickles down to, and I know for this, and like I said, I know these 3 families, they was paying $5,000 and $6,000 each respectively. So when that leaves a Bermudian family, that's a lot of money. That was just in rent. Mm-hmm. That's almost, that's $21,000 per month that's now left Bermuda. And it'd be easy to say, oh, that's all because of the PLP. But that was all because of the risky business that investment companies are in. That's what they do. They invest, and sometimes these investments don't go the way they want to, and people end up getting laid off. Shouldn't we be facing that? And another issue I have is the $5 billion debt that doesn't get talked about much, that's out in the private sector. Wouldn't that also slow up our growth? Because if really people are already in $5 million debt, we don't have too far that we can grow for such a small community.
Okay.
So I think, isn't it some honesty we have to say? Because what I'm more afraid of is that magic bullet out there. Oh, just vote OVA, and magically things are going to happen. And if they don't magically happen, we could just say we're still struggling from the PLP. I think, some honesty needs to come now and say, yes, we lost business because of international investment companies and they lost revenue, and as a result, and maybe we need to find some new revenue streams so that we don't have to go in a decline because investment companies, do what they do.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I'm going to allow him to respond.
Thank you, caller. Yeah, I noticed you touched on a number of points there, and I can assure you that I'm not offering, or we're not offering you a David Copperfield Act. This won't be an instant turnaround. We're very, very deep in a hole here, and we're not going to be able to see massive change for another 3 or 4 years. I'll promise you that. It's that much I can promise you. The debt is so big that it's going to take a long time to start hitting our principal. We're paying $300,000.
Over $315,000 a day.
And that's that's a lot of money. So as anyone knows who has a mortgage, who's lost a tenant, and you've had to renegotiate just to the interest, all that's doing is adding cost to your loan. It's extending the period. It's making you pay more money. The other thing is you touched on an investment firm. I don't know what company it is. I don't know what circumstances caused them to go out of business. But Bermuda's market is mainly not investment. It's more reinsurance. We were the reinsurance capital of the world. And the reinsurance market has grown in other jurisdictions. So how come it hasn't grown here? One of the things is what I've talked about previously, the lack of stability and credibility that the government's given these companies, playing with the payroll tax, playing with the upper end on it, unfriendly immigration policies, the Job Creator Act, which, whilst it was meant to seem as something to help the job creators, it was so conditions heavy that when you have to jump through 18 moving targets, it ends up tying their hands more than actually helping them facilitate and grow business.
Matt, you want to take another call?
Sure.
Thanks for calling. Who are you on the air?
Yes, good afternoon.
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 Yes, good afternoon to you guys. Gina, your guest seems like a very educated person, and then you got just an ordinary lady like just then off explaining stuff to you, and it makes him really look a little bit silly, because we all know that the international business, even in the United States and throughout the world, they have been having trouble. You could take American International, that was one of the first international businesses on the island. You got British American, you got several that are going belly up. I mean, you could just look at the news and see that people have lost jobs in America. And of course, America is one of the places that we rely on as far as tourism is concerned, international business is concerned. So how could he come on the air and say to us and make it look like the PLP is responsible for the economy and the jobs of lost? That's utterly ridiculous. And he sounds like an educated person. So stop that nonsense. We all know. Cut it out. I mean, gee, if the OBA wants to get in, come with something else.
So do you have a question for him?
No, that's all I have to say. It's
okay.
Just ignorant.
All right. Sure, I'll let him respond. Okay, Mr. Kemp.
Thank you, caller. Two things that you said that I'm having a little trouble with. AIG didn't actually go belly up. They received a bailout from the United States government, which they've repaid in its entirety, and they simply rebranded as Chartist. Their building's still there. It's still full of employees, and whilst the world in general is in a recession, the reinsurance section, the reinsurance industry is not. And that is what we are very heavy on. So when the U.S. catches a cold, we get a sneeze, we should be riding the crest of this recession. Yet we seem to be almost worst off. So that stuff comes because the companies are getting pushed off the island. And you talk about how everything's due to the world recession. I mean, if you look at the difference between budgeted spending and actual spending, under Eugene Cox, the matters stayed, the spending and the budgeting were in line, as they were with the two previous finance ministers before him. However, in 2004, going forwards under Paula Cox, this is pre-recession. This is pre-Dr. Brown for his critics. This is 2004 onwards. Every single year, there has been more spending than what was meant to be spent. And I go back to if you're making $1,000 and you spend $1,200, you can't do that for too long before you start losing things. Well, as Bermuda as a country, we're very close to that.
Okay, I think we're going to go back to the phone lines. Thanks for holding, caller. You're on the air.
Well, as Bermuda as a country.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good afternoon.
And you guess? I don't think them last two callers get it. to be honest with you, I just don't think they get it. The overall picture, the spending that was allowed to go on by the former finance minister, and now she's talking about good governance. Where were they when they had all this extra spending going on and letting people just do what they wanted to do with money? That was the taxpayers' money. And now with everybody that's in business, small businesses are suffering because of it. And not to mention that the people that did have tenants in the house are struggling to get tenants because there's nobody here. Everybody's leaving. So to the last two callers, they better snap out of it and come out in the real world. Because other people have houses and mortgages to pay, and they relied on people that was renting from outside. The landscapers are struggling. The overall picture, everybody is struggling in the business world. And this is because of the policies that they put in place. No two ways about it. So you can dash around I don't know how you can dash around it all you want. Dance around the mulberry bush all you want. They done it, and this is the consequences that all the businesses are suffering because of it. They're leaving in dribs. Wake up and look at how many people that have been made redundant from HSBC.
Mm-hmm. I
Just
couldn't
think
have said
about
it better.
for a little while. All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you, caller.
Bye.
Thanks for holding, caller. You're on the air.
Hi, good afternoon, Gina.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to your guest.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
My question, I just want to respond to that gentleman first, that every other country in the world, and those of us who are people that, are knowledgeable about international affairs, know that every country in the world is struggling, and Paula Cox is not the finance minister in any other country other than Bermuda. But the question I want to ask is, what is it that do you think that the PLP government has done or has not done that has caused the social upheaval in our country today? Keeping in mind that the problems that Bermuda has with gun violence, gang violence, antisocial behavior is occurring everywhere from Greece to St. Kitts to Jamaica to, Toronto, Ontario. What do you think that the PLP has done or not done to create that, and what would the OBA do to stop it from happening? I'll listen on fair.
Thank you, caller. Have a good day.
Well, thank you, caller. I think a lot of the social ills that we've noticed nowadays that have been so conveniently labeled as the young black male, we've had reports done, the Mincy report, our educational system is suffering. The Hopkins report set out a number of guidelines that needed to be addressed, but we haven't had the leadership or the follow-through to actually do the plan. There's been 8 or 9 ministers in the last 13 years. I mean, how can you ever see a long-through project through if you're there for 6 months to a year? They're very quick to say that they have done all the points, but they haven't really gone deep on it. So if one of the points was clean your car, all they've done is shine the rims, and so the education has left people out. We need to follow up with the Hopkins report. We also need to look at the fact that Bermuda's middle class is being pushed back down into poverty, and poverty breeds violence. drugs, antisocial behavior, as well as kids that are coming out of the schools. They get left. Everyone gets pushed through, and so if you don't get it, you're being told consistently that you're stupid, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, even if it may not be true.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go back to the phone lines. Thanks for holding, caller. You on the air?
Yes, good
Afternoon.
good afternoon to your guests and you.
Good day.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Yeah. I would like to ask here, how many people did the caller before said the HSBC is laid off people? That's all around the world.
What is your question? Sorry.
Why are the OPA still using the same skirt taxes that they used, that the UBP used when they lost the elections? They're trying to frighten people into voting for them. And why is that? Tell me what they could do. Thank you.
Well, thank you, caller. Thanks for holding, caller. You on the air?
Hi, good afternoon, Gina. How are you today?
Fine, thank you.
And good afternoon to your guests.
Good
Good afternoon.
Okay, I think, look, first of all, I commend you, for stepping forward, you know what I mean? I glory in your spirit. I think what people are a little disappointed with is that, obviously opposition, they're in an enviable position because, they can sort of say just about anything they like as far as how we got here, but it's very little substance as to how we can move forward and so get ourselves out of this, right? And that's the thing that that seems to be lacking. And also, I'm a little disappointed that you would just cite policies of the PLP and not acknowledge, the worldwide recession. I mean, it's just a matter about being fair. I mean, I recognize that the election is not too far off, and the objective is to get elected, but not by any means necessary. I mean, I just think people are a little tired of hearing the things that we already know about, and would like to hear more substance as to what the OBA would actually do, as opposed to plucking out the things that you feel are wrong. You know what I mean? Because I could dispute a lot of the things that you've said, but I need to hear more of what you would actually do to move us forward. That's what I need to hear.
Okay, thank you, caller.
Thank you, caller. I obviously acknowledge the effect that especially the U.S. recession has on the world's recession and Bermuda's in particular. But we also do need to understand that the problems have been exaggerated massively because of these failures in policy that I was talking about earlier. And I'm not going to go into them again because, as you said, everyone's aware of them. But after 14 years, it's time for a change. If we don't live up to what we're promising, we live in a democracy, vote us out. It seems like in Bermuda we go through one mindset to another swing. In 30 years, way too long. 14 years, way too long. You don't see other countries where the governments are sitting there for that long unless they're dictatorships. A lot of the points, the policy points, and I'm not sure what particularly if you were referring to economics or to the other issues. If you look at the reply to the throne speech and the reply to the budget, it lays out a lot of the policies that the OBA is embracing. If we want to go back to the economy again, on our pro-growth side, we're looking at providing tax relief for employee payroll taxes for those workers earning less than $50,000 a year. So that means the company will still be paying their half, but the employee will be relieved of their portion of the payroll tax, giving them more disposable income to spend in the economy. We're also going to look at reviewing the company law to attract this investment that's standing aside with their hands in their deep pockets, waiting for the time to invest. We're going to recognize that the 60/40 ownership law for corporations is an outdated impediment. It was back in the day when we needed to get Bermudians involved in the business. We've got that. We need to understand that there's capital projects that Bermudians don't have the funding ability to get in up to that percentage. It's a high percentage. We need to understand that our waterfronts in Hamilton and St. George's aren't going to be revitalized if we have to depend on Bermudians funding that high a percentage of the job. We can also look at boosting opportunities for small businesses. I know at work there's a lot of people who store stuff with us, and they feel like they're being left out by the government contracts, be it from Housing Corporation, be it because all the contracts seem to be going to a few select large contractors. So we'll be reserving 20% of government spending on goods and services with private sector suppliers for small business. We'll be requiring government to pay its bills in less than 30 days. Now, this point obviously won't happen immediately because that's a massive tax on the cash flow ability. We'll need to get some of the other things in line before we can move into that. So I'm saying that before I get a call coming back citing me on it.
Okay, go back to the phone lines. Thanks for holding, caller. You're on the air.
Good afternoon, Gina. Good afternoon to your guest.
Good afternoon.
Gina's caller back in the very beginning talked about a family that she knew intimately borrowing money and had an investment firm in their rental unit taking up the rent, and so basically they were able to do okay as long as that foreign investment company had their people in there. That is part and parcel of the reason why we are in the position that we are in today. First and foremost, I don't call it a UBP, PLP, OBA, or anybody else's problem. I call it a Bermudian problem. We took ourselves to the point of becoming so darn greedy that when the bases were here and we were able to start upping our rents with the base personnel, then the likes of the international company, we took it another 100% up the market. We outpriced ourselves. And then at the flip side of that, like the gentleman said, if you're paying out $1,000 a month, but you're living off of paying, you're actually supposed to be paying out $1,200 a month, but you're only making $1,000. This was our problem. When we were making it good, we were spending it very riotously, and Bermudians just up the yin-yang, spent money very loosely. Now we are in a time of crisis. We don't have what we should have, and we want to blame everybody and anybody for the problem that we're in. I blame the legislators, and I like to point it right down to the civil servants if I can. I don't have the time to go into detail, but let me tell you something. Legislation should have long been put in place, and if the OBA is elected, because this is one of the things that has been put to the PLP time and time again, when the OBA is elected, if they're elected, or the PLP means business about doing real business for Bermudians, let's get back to basics and let's get back to affordability in this country. And something has to be done. The gentleman rightly said, the greatest intake in our country when it comes to finances is food and rent. And they are the two that's going right out the roof. And if you don't do something about those two things, you're going to see poverty on the highest level in this country. And then, of course, crime is going to escalate. People losing jobs left, right, and center. They're threatened to be evicted. They're threatened to lose their home. They're threatened everywhere and every which way you can because they don't have the livelihood that they used to. So what do you think they're going to turn to? And then we've got another menace in society and another thing happening in society. But I'll say in closing that what I'm listening to this young man say today, I don't look at him as an OBA representative. I look at him as a Bermudian that's showing us facts, bringing it to the table, and if what he says is correct, then I think we need to sit up and pay attention. And I would say to the Premier, who is the finance minister, if the OBA is coming out with factual stuff, then if you're not got the guts to do what's right and admit we are in this position, then we need to replace her. And it's just as simple as that. Because there's no way me just running around telling the bank, look, I'm not in debt, I'm okay, I'm cool. And they know darn well I'm paying my mortgage. Mm-hmm. They know darn well I'm living up to my responsibility, but I'm making everybody else believe that I'm doing okay. Mm-hmm. Until the bottom falls out, and then we're all going to point at the Premier and say, well, how did we get in this position? No, pay attention now, Bermuda, because guess what? We are suffering, and there's too many of us suffering, and we need answers, and we need them not tomorrow. We do need them now. Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you, caller.
Thanks for holding. You are on the air.
Yes. My question relates to the gentleman's comments about, we are going to take a look at certain things. And I really think it's about time that the OBA shifted gears and told us what it is they are going to do versus what they're going to look at. Because taking a look at things doesn't mean that they're going to do anything different to what is currently in place. So, I would encourage the candidates, all of them, including the leader, to come forward and tell us what exactly they would do about the various issues, rather than sort of taking a look. And I'll listen off here to your response.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, caller. I'm not sure what I said we would be taking a look at, but I know I did mention, and I'll summarize them again, our specific initiatives. New Job Creator a new Job Creator Act that is not conditions heavy, that would make the ability for them to come in and get certain latitudes because they're creating jobs simple, with the approval of immigration permits at the company and corporation stage, the employee payroll tax cut for those employees earning less than $50,000, getting rid of the 60-40 ownership law for corporations, reserving 20% of government spending on goods and services with private sector supplies for small businesses, eventually requiring government to pay its bills in less than 30 days, granting any employer a 2-year payroll tax exemption for new Bermudian hiring. And this isn't if you have 10 employees, you fire one and get another. I'm talking going from 10 to 11 to 12. There will be a 2-year payroll tax exemption for the employer on that new hiring. Reducing the costs of business by providing incentives and guarantees for electrical cogeneration plants. These are all specific ideas. These are not reviews or thinking about. Unclogging the approval process at the Department of Planning to facilitate job-creating projects. This is our plan if elected. People keep saying we don't have a plan. This is our plan. These are the policies. So I'm sorry if you felt that I was sitting here without any ideas or said that I was just looking at stuff. No. We're all the shadow boards have a specific itemized plan that as soon as we're elected, the legislation has been drafted. It'll start getting pushed through the House. We won't have to sit and think and discuss it. It's been discussed. It's been laid out. It's been thought about. It's been argued by people who are very competent and very knowledgeable in their field.
Thanks for holding, caller. You're on the air.
Hello, how are you today?
Fine, thank you.
That's good. I'd just like to say that the gentleman who called about 2 callers ago, that is the most informative and well-spoken call I've heard on this talk show maybe all year. He is smart enough not to know that, not to put it down to any political party's fault. It's our fault. It's the people of Bermuda's fault that have allowed certain things to go ahead while we knew that those weren't the best decisions, you know? And we need to put our foot down and let the government know, whichever government it be, that we need X, Y, Z. I can't say that I'm a supporter of the ODA. I used to be a supporter of the PLC, but I find it hard to support them in the present climate. But one point that he did make, along with the overspending and living beyond our means, and every time a little bit extra came up, we spent that too, is the fact that when you start cutting all this out of people's budget, when all this availability of the money ceases in the legal matter, you will have more people trying illegal things to get paid. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you, caller. I completely agree with you there. There is a very prevalent mentality in Bermuda of risky living on the edge or beyond your means, keeping up with the Joneses. And whilst that can't be connected directly to a government's policy, our culture, our spending culture, starts from the example given by leadership. Like I said, we've been overspending every single year since 2004. That's not 1 year, that's not a blip, that's a trend. And if it seems okay at the top, it seems okay for the people who look up to our leaders, to our political leaders, to our government. And There was another point that you mentioned that I'm sorry I was micing and
I'll take another call. Thanks for holding caller. You on the air.
Yeah, good afternoon to you and your guest.
Good afternoon.
afternoon.
Yeah, what I want to say is this here. You know, I'm a black man, okay? I'm a black man, and I'm tired of hearing the old UBP and the UBP complaining. I'm always been a PLP, and I want to say this here. I don't see nothing wrong with the policies. I don't see nothing wrong with them. As long as I can live from day to day, that's the way I'm going to live. I don't need to be used by any white people come around making believe that I can do this and do that, because that's all I see them been doing all these years. Look at Mr. Dockley. All these years, all he's been doing using black people.
Okay, we definitely would ask our callers not to be making defamatory comments about any of the members of any party. We would ask you to respectfully make your comments or ask your questions. Thank you. Thanks for holding caller. You on the line.
Yes, good afternoon, Gina. Good afternoon to your guest.
Hi there.
Good afternoon.
I just wanted to congratulate you for coming forward. It's a very brave thing to do as a comedian, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
I have a suggestion for both government and the UBA. In these economic times, you know, we talk about cutting back on our payroll tax and this and that. But what I find, a lot of people in Bermuda, and I'm not saying no color or what, I'm saying Bermudians in general, a lot of people do not know how to deal with their finances, their paychecks at the end of the day. They're like in a slave mentality. They live for today. They don't think about tomorrow. When tomorrow comes, they'll think about it. So government, OBA, needs to teach, needs to educate the Bermudians how to deal and how to manage what they have at the moment. Because, okay, I made $1,000 last week. Now I'm making $800. So you have to adjust your finances. And it can be done. And that's the problem right now we have in Bermuda. Yes, a lot of Bermudians live amongst their means, and they earn, this is all they know. They live for today. But they need to be taught how to deal with finances. And once that's established, we will find that a lot of this negativity and stuff will decrease. I'm not going to say it's going to go, because crime and all this stuff would be around until the Almighty comes. But we need, government OBA needs to educate Bermudians on how to deal with finances. I'm not talking about investments, just how to deal with their personal budget.
Yeah, basic budgeting.
Right, and that's our biggest problem. Like my granny, and this is my last statement, my granny brought me up, and she says, it's not what you make, it's what you save at the end of the day. And when you look at an ant's always busy. An ant is packing away food for that rainy day. And that's what Bermudians need to know how to do, and stop living in that slave mentality and live for today and plan your future down the road. And I want to hear more of that from the OBA and government. And I think that will help a lot of Bermudians to deal with their finances today. Okay?
Thank you,
I
caller.
wish you all the best for the next election.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, take care.
On that note, on a personal level at work, when I was tired of seeing people come in and ask for a pay advance, not because it wasn't something that we could give, but because it was a symptom of poor budgeting, and the implications that could have should they, get into a long-term sickness situation or anything like that. And if you're asking for $200 this week, it means you've got nothing saved up. And so I asked everyone to, not that the response was glowing, but I asked everyone to fill out a budget. Now, if everything wasn't spent on your card, you can't use your bank statement as your balance, so I gave everyone a notebook and a pencil. And I asked, write down every single thing you spend it on. If you're worried about vices that you don't want to share, call it recreation. I didn't care what it was, but I wanted to know where the money was going. Because only until you're truly aware where it's going can you try and affect the nature of your spending? And from an OBA point of view, life skills, and by life skills I mean not just balancing a checkbook and basic budgeting, but interviewing and how to cook. Because if you don't know how to cook, you're going to spend too much money. When I see someone at work looking at their bank account, knowing if they can buy lunch, that means that's $15 that day. Well, make lunch. Go to the supermarket. Spend $5. That's $10 saving per day. That's $50 a week. That's $200 a month. That's $2,400 a year. That's a lot of money. Until you start breaking it down to the simple things, a lot of people just aren't aware of the effect of these small daily decisions. And yeah, I completely agree with you. That needs to be taught. It needs to be stressed a lot. 6 months savings in the bank before you go and buy a bike.
Okay, I'm going to take another call. Thanks for holding. Caller, you on the air.
Good afternoon, Gina. Good afternoon, Mr. Kemp.
Good afternoon.
I must say it's refreshing. I've listened to you this afternoon as I've listened to many of the candidates for the upcoming election. And certainly not just on the OBA side, but of all the candidates. You've articulated the OBA point of view as well as any that I've heard. And I want to congratulate you. You sound like a fresh new face in the political arena. My only regret is that you're not in a more winnable seat. But it certainly is refreshing, and keep up the good work, and hopefully some of the more senior OBA representatives will take a page out of your book, because certainly you've put the OBA's argument forward as forceful and as plain and simple for people to understand as anybody I've heard. So it certainly is good to hear from you, and hopefully there's more people like you to come forward.
Thank you very much for such glowing words. If I was put in a winnable seat, then I'd just be a politician, and I wanted to actually try and make a difference. If it's a handout, it doesn't taste as good as if you've worked for it. And I live in 18.
That, and I wish you all the luck. And like I said, I just think we need good people in the government these days. And you certainly sound like one of those persons who have their fingers on the pulse. And I certainly, what we need is, whether you work for it or not, what we need is good people in the House of Assembly to run this country and get us out of the mess that we're in. And certainly, you sound like one of those people that could do that.
Thank you.
Good luck, and hopefully the OBA can win this next election and get this mess that we're in sorted out.
It's time for change.
That's right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for holding. Caller, you on the air.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, sorry.
Good afternoon.
Listening to your guest candidate there, I'm not really impressed myself with anything he's really said this morning. I understand that basically all that the ideas he has put forth are already being acted upon by the current government. In fact, I understand that many of the ideas he's put forth came out of the PLP camp, in fact. So I'm not hearing anything really new here, And but one of the things that I do want to ask about is, he opened up with saying that, which I assume he was approached by Craig Kenneneer. Now, the question I'm asking the gentleman is, has he not at all? Because I think it's important. You say you're not interested in being, or it seems as though you're not interested in being a politician, first and foremost at least. So then why is it that we're constantly hearing the candidates of the OBA basically express on the radio that they're really not even so much as spoken to the PLP? It appears that there's some fear there. I think that Senator Smith is an example of a person who has basically put aside the rhetoric, which I'm sure reaches the gentleman's community on a significant level. And what I see is that him putting aside that rhetoric and decided, I'm going to see for myself. And in doing so, came away impressed so much that he joined the party. And I'm not hearing that from the OBA, and I put aside the argument, altogether, that the OBA is not the new UBP. There's no way I think you can convince, most of us out here of that argument, because we're seeing a significant number of those coming from the UBP, and not just ordinary person, but in fact MPs, sitting MPs, and joining the OBA. That speaks to the fact that the OBA is the rebranding. So he can continue to put that argument, and I'll certainly be interested in listening to it and trying to convince myself. But again, the question being, why the gentleman has not sat down with members of the Progressive Party, looked at both policies and compared and said, now I have a decision to make, rather than looking at one side, one policy, and deciding from there.
Okay, Cole, I've got a lot of other calls coming in, so can I let him respond to your question?
All right, sure.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, caller. Now, you mentioned a couple of points there. One of them was in relation to Senator Smith, and I'm sorry if I hear people saying that the food in a restaurant's not good and people are coming out sick, I'm not going to try it for myself. I want something different, and that's why, the OBA is really the only feasible option that I see for getting out of this mess, because they're not the ones that got us in it. And insofar as your comment, and I'm tired of hearing it too. I wasn't involved in the UBP, so it's not something personal to me on that. But trying to cast this stale old light on the OBA as if it were the reincarnation of the UBP is silly. The UBP was a party. It was full of people who were in the House. They were politicians. 2 of them have remained in the party. The other ones, some of them, who I would say are the ones you'd want to keep, are in the OBA, and others have gone to the PLP. I mean, the person who's making the most noise and moving and shaking government right now was the ex-leader of the UBP, Mr. Wayne Ferbert. You've got Mr. Stephen Todd. You've got Michael Scott. You've got Wendell Hollis. You've got, the list is quite long, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not intimately familiar with the UBP. I'm sure there's many more names, but it's a null argument in my view.
Okay. Well, we've got about 60 seconds, so I'm going to just allow you to make a final comment to the constituents, as well as of the island before you leave. What would you like to leave those constituents with before you leave today? What's your message?
Well, I'm sorry. Is that on? Sorry, I am. I'm out there working tirelessly. You haven't all seen me yet. I've only been out there for 2 weeks. I've started over on Sunset Pass. I've done the road I live on, Table Rock. I spent a lot of time this weekend listening to the neighbors in Stowe Court, Cox's Hill Drive. I'm going to be up on Barclay Road next week. If there's anything, don't feel like I'm avoiding you because you haven't seen me. There's a lot of streets, and there's only so many hours for as little sleep as I get. There's only so many hours in the day. If you have anything specific or any pressing needs concerns you'd like to talk to me about, you can contact me by email. It's nkempe, that's NKEMPE @oba.bm, or you can call me on my cell, 294-3218.
All right. Well, we want to thank you very much, Mr. Nick Kempe, and wish you well in your endeavors to represent those constituents out there in Pembroke. Again, thank you and have a great day.